Our daily devotional. Today we are going to talk about majestic pace. And actually this is continuing in the same kind of theme as we have been talking about previous days this week. But we're going to talk about what does it mean to pace correctly and how does one get the confidence to continue and pace. So yesterday we talked about how prophecy will help you during trying times, right? You remember that there's a promise, and that promise helps you to get through difficult situations, because if it's prophesied about, it's probably going to be tested. And so that's kind of important. We also talked about dealing with pressure and how pressure is important as we grow. But today we're going to talk about the pace. Now, we're all on a journey and we're moving towards a direction. And actually that's where our focus, or these devotionals in the most recent months have been, is that we're going to focus towards moving forward and doing something great, and doing something that involves developing ministry or developing self and moving forward. Now, if we're moving forward, we're usually moving forward at a certain rate, or what we call pacing, if we're running. And so one thing you should know about me is that I run usually at the gym. I used to run on the streets or, on the track and whatnot, but now I run primarily on treadmills. And it's interesting because your body has a certain level of muscle memory, right? If you're a runner, or if you've been a runner for quite some time, then your body can remember the right form, the right pace, the right way to move. But it takes a bit of adjusting. And so what I found is if I take some time off, maybe last week, for example, I was on vacation, or if I'm doing other things and I don't get to run as often, then my body has to readjust to a pace because I'm kind of putting it under a great amount of stress. The type of running I'm doing requires a good amount of form. It requires me to have good pacing. I need to have a good level of energy, and so on and so forth. So I find that after I've taken a break, I have to readjust my pacing. I have to readjust my form so that my running really is beneficial and not harmful for my body, particularly my knees and my ankles. And so I noticed yesterday, after I've been back in the gym for just a few days, that my pacing was getting better, and that there was a better stride, and I was just working better in my running. But I looked over and I noticed this lady who is often at the gym when I'm at the gym, and she is clearly a runner. She doesn't seem to take as many days off as me, which is good. But she clearly is increasing, or maybe possibly training for something, but she's increasing with steady determination. She's increasing her pace. She's running faster. She's running uphill, and she looks absolutely majestic. You can't hear her on the treadmill, which is a sign that she's doing the right thing, because she's not slapping, right? But she's running and she looks majestic. She lifts her legs, she moves her upper body, and everything works in this beautiful harmonic pacing. And I thought about it and I said, wow, she's really well adjusted to a proper pacing for her to do whatever it is that she's training to do. Even if it's just exercise, this is all she might be doing is trying to exercise. She looks majestic in what she does. And I remember yesterday spending some time with the Lord while I'm running. For me, it's healing, it's restorative, but I'm also doing a lot of praying and talking while I'm running. And so while I was running, I was saying, God bless this lady. I hope that she accomplishes everything that she's supposed to accomplish. So I'm also praying for people. God bless her as she does that. But I thought about how much of a role model she was in more spiritual endeavors, that we do need to be consistent. And we talked about that before. But in addition to being consistent, we really need to find the proper pace for the season that we're in. Now, in every season, we don't run at the same pace. There are some times where we're training, or we're trying to build up some stamina, and we run at a different pace than we would be if we're racing. When you get into a race, you have a new level of adrenaline, a new level of strength, because you're racing. So it brings on this new thing. But it's important to understand the correct pace for the season of life that you're in. Be it running, be it work related, be it progressing in business, if it's doing more in ministry, if it's in your relationship, if it's working with your children, wherever you are in life, there's a way to recognize how quickly you should be moving or when you need to draw back and take more time to do the things that are needed. And so pacing is extremely important. And as I was talking to the Lord about that, I thought about there's a reference in the scripture that we're going to look at today in which God is talking about the pacing of different animals, and what that means is actually an analogy in which he talks about the pacing of these different animals, but how pacing really can be based on not only practice, right, but also on this confidence that you are where you're supposed to be. For example, let's go back to the woman at the gym who's majestic in her running. She has been training. She's been progressively getting faster. I know that because I've been in the gym with her. She started at a pretty slow pace, going up a small incline, and now she's going up a far greater incline at a higher rate. She's running at a higher speed, and she has pulled herself out into that place. So she's progressively increased her speed, increased her incline. She knows exactly what she's doing. And when she's running with great confidence. She knows that she's hitting that treadmill correctly. And maybe if she doesn't know, people who run can tell by watching her. She's hitting that treadmill correctly. She's not slapping it. She doesn't look tired. And she runs for a pretty considerable amount of time at this high speed with this great incline. And that's what makes it majestic. You watch and you say, my goodness, this lady is really a runner, right? And so we watch this go forward, but there's just this certain level of confidence. And we find that in this passage. So I want to share this passage with you that may be uncommon. Maybe you have not read before, but I hope you spend the time to read it, and we'll make some connections. And so the passage is Proverbs 30, and we're going to start in verse 29. And it says, I'm in the New King James Version. It says, there are 3 things which are majestic in pace. Yes, 4 which are stately in walk. A lion, which is mighty among beasts, and does not turn away from any. A greyhound, a male goat also, and a king whose troops are with him. In some translations it says, and a king against whom there is no uprising. All right, so these are the things, 4 things that are stately or majestic in pace, right? And so what is he saying here? What is the concept behind this proverb? Well, the proverb is saying basically the confidence of this king. He is amongst the lion and amongst the greyhound, which when we watch that greyhound pace, it's beautiful, right? He stretches out, it's beautiful. We see that lion go for its prey. It's beautiful. He completely has full confidence and clarity. He knows exactly how to move. Even the walking of the lion is majestic. And so he's saying, look at these 3 things. And the male goat, I haven't watched a lot of male goats, but I believe the proverb, okay? It was a different time. But these things, these animals are only matched with this king who has his people around him. They are his confidence. They are the things that ensure him that he will be okay. And then the other translation says a king who there's no uprising. In other words, there's nothing preventing him from reigning as he needs to reign, from being the king in the majesty that he needs to be the king, or in majesty. And we are, it can be like that king. We can be like that lion. We can be like that greyhound in our pacing if we are confident enough to understand that this is the season, this is the time, this is the place for me to move forward, to advance. And so the confidence that comes to this king that's in this reference, to that runner that's on that treadmill, to us as we're going through our journey, really comes through being assured and asking questions and exploring and knowing that this is exactly where we're supposed to be. The lion doesn't wonder if he's supposed to be the king of the jungle. He knows he's the king, right? He doesn't wonder, the greyhound doesn't wonder if he's supposed to run. He knows he's supposed to run. He was built to run. And you should not wonder if you're supposed to continue on or pace forward or advance the kingdom or advance in ministry or continue the growth of your marriage or help your children in ways that is appropriate and not enabling. You shouldn't wonder about that. You should know, like these animals know, like that king that has his people around him, where there's nobody uprising. We should know that we are where we're supposed to be. Do we know that? And is our pacing set? I hope so. I'm praying for you. I'm praying that you would heal, live, and grow. That as you do that, that you would find the right pacing for the season that you're in and pace yourself through so that someone else, maybe not just because someone else will be looking at you and wonder and saying how majestic your pace is, but because that's a testimony. That's not a bad thing either. In other words, do it because you should be doing it, but it's not a bad thing to be a testimony to others that you're doing the right thing. And so I'm praying for you for those reasons, because we need you to be a testimony, yes, but we also need you to be in the right season, doing the right thing with the confidence that the lion and the greyhound and the male goat and the king who has no uprising do. We need you to be like the woman on the treadmill where people can notice, wow, they really seem to be getting good direction. They really seem to understand the place that they're at. They really seem to be pacing well. There's majesty in their pace. I hope that you're praying for us as well, because definitely we need your prayers. And we're going to ask you to join us again tomorrow with another of our devotionals. So until then, be blessed.